bring Misty Marris in, the trial attorney, legal analyst, who's here with me in our New York studios. Now, on the actual charges, he appeared in court today. I have him on the tablet. We can bring him up. The gun charges against this guy. 15 years in the first, 5 years in the second. Now, we have no reason to believe that he actually fired his weapon. The guns the shots fired apparently were Secret Service, as far as we know. Right. So that would affect charges that they could bring against him, I presume. So take it from there.
Absolutely, Connell. So that's why you're seeing him being arrested on these gun possession charges. That's all that was needed in order to make this arrest under the charges as they stand today. Of course, we know law enforcement is going to be digging deep, just as we are from the media perspective, to find out more about this individual and see if there was a plot. We're hearing it's a possible assassination plot. They're going to be gathering evidence now that he's in custody to determine whether or not additional charges outside of that are appropriate.
So Dave Ehrenberg was on a couple times today on the network, and he's the state attorney down there in Palm Beach County, right? The local DA, essentially, in Palm Beach County, saying that we could see more. Let's listen to what he said first. I want to come back and talk about what type of charges we might see. Ehrenberg here.
Now, the charges that have been filed already are gun charges. They're the easiest ones to prove. You don't have to prove any intent. So these are pretty low-hanging fruit. I mean, but they're serious. They could get you up to 10 years in prison for each offense. And so the feds are not going to mess around with this. This guy is going to be kept in pretrial detention because he poses a danger to the public. And I suspect there will be more charges forthcoming.
Yeah, he refers to the feds and says, I suspect, because this is a federal case right now. What do you think is coming?
Right. Well, absolutely. Right now we're seeing a federal case because these are federal gun possession charges. And as Dave absolutely correctly said, these are the easiest. This is the low-hanging fruit. Easy to hold him on this. But to the extent that there's plotting and planning and perhaps an attempted murder or attempted assault with a deadly weapon, you don't have to execute a crime and complete it successfully to be charged. But that's going to require, as Dave said, proving intent, proving there's a plot or plan, or that there's something more than what we know right now. Right now, we're opining based on the circumstances, but there's not going to be an arrest on those other charges until a thorough investigation is complete.
And the other thing is what I wanted to ask you about is whether it would be state charges versus the federal charges we're seeing now. Nicole Burley asked him about that. Dave said he doesn't think state charges are necessary. Now, this could be just politics, of course, but the governor, Ron DeSantis, says they are going to have an investigation. Here's DeSantis.
We're going to be doing a state-level investigation. I understand that the feds are involved, but we do believe that there were multiple violations of state law. We also believe that there's a need to make sure that the truth about all this comes out in a way, that's credible. I mean, I look at the federal government with all due respect to them. Those same agencies that are prosecuting Trump in that jurisdiction are now going to be investigating this. I just think that that may not be the best thing.
Well, that last part obviously is a political comment, but what about the first part, state charges?
Yeah, I'm going to take the political aspect out of it and just talk about sheerly legal. There are absolutely potential appropriate state-level charges. For instance, Connell, an attempted murder charge, that would be a state charge. Okay. Now, you could also see this falling under the federal purview. Remember, Donald Trump isn't a federal official at the moment. So murder charges that come from on the federal side, you see when it's an elected official, an appointed official, a judge, someone in law enforcement. So whether or not a political, somebody running for office is going to fall under that federal statute for attempted murder, that's a question mark. So
let me ask you about attempted murder as a charge, and this might seem silly to someone because they say, well, the guy had an AK-47, he's lying in the bushes, the former president. From what we know, is there enough evidence for that charge now, or would we need more to establish intent, a letter or something else? Because, as I said at the beginning, we don't think he fired his weapon.
Right.
Let's look at the weapon or the backpack.
So now we're looking at, we know that we've got on the possession charges, but to your point, Connell, there's not going to be arrest on anything more until the pieces are put together.
Right.
Because there's going to be information out there. We have somebody who's living. Oftentimes in these types of situations, the person doesn't make it out of there alive. So there's the possibility that we find out more information about his intent. And to your point, it does require a showing of intent, especially when you have an attempt crime. Right. Because it wasn't, again, you don't have to complete your plan in order to be held criminally responsible.
But showing up with an AK-47 doesn't establish that necessarily?
To me, I see that that's where this is going, but I don't think you're going to see the arrest on the more complicated to prove charges until a full and thorough investigation is done, because at that point, you have it locked up, the I's are dotted, the T's are crossed. And you're holding him on 2 very serious charges, which means he's not going anywhere.
That was the low-hanging fruit that Dave was talking about. So that's how you get that out of the way, and then you work from there.
Correct.
All right. Misty, thank you as always for explaining all of this. Misty Marris with us.